Hey guys, this is my video going over the classes and feats present in the One D&D UA Expert Classes. This UA was released a few weeks ago, and at the time of recording this, the survey is now available until November 10th. I'd let this document kind of stew over for the past 2 weeks to truly assess my opinion on the classes and feats present here, and my opinions have definitely changed since then, so this video will be taking a look at the Bard, Ranger, and Rogue classes, as well as the various different feats and rule updates found in this document. So the first big change seems to be that the classes are grouped together into 4 different class groups. Warriors, which consist of fighters, barbarians, and monks. Mages include the wizard, sorcerer, and warlock classes. Priests consist of cleric, druid, and paladin. And the group that we're going to be looking at in this document, the expert group, which will include rogue, bard, and ranger. Artificer is also listed as an expert class, but that's not in the document, probably to be released at a later time within One D&D's actual life cycle. I actually kind of like this change. It gives some similarities to the classes within each group, and there are even different features later on that are shared between the classes in each group. It's good that they started with the experts too, since that pretty much gives us one class that's a full caster, one that's a partial caster, and one that's a non-caster. So it really just runs the gamut of the different class types in D&D and how each one will most likely be handled in later documents. Even upon seeing the changes to these classes, we see that they've changed quite a bit between 5th edition and 1D&D. Features are completely changed. Some of them happen at later levels than they were in 5th edition. Some of them have been removed. And a big change across all classes in this edition is that their level 20 capstones have been moved to earlier levels, with the actual level 20 feature being an epic boon, which we'll cover a little later. Alright, well, moving on from there, let's look at these expert classes a little further, starting off with the Bard. Bards are storytellers, musicians, and poets who weave their words through magic, and are also very world-weary, with a wide array of skills and knowledge across multiple subjects. In 5th edition, they were a spellcasting class with a focus on support and debuffing, with plenty of social application. With One D&D not being terribly different, but also showcasing a wide array of changes. They have the same HP, saving throw, and armor proficiencies as is 5th edition, and they can choose 3 skills of any choice, so they do give suggestions for some certain skills to choose. I do kind of wish they would add these skills kind of like after they say you can choose 3 of these skills at any time, because I guess the way they're formatting this, it's more, I guess this is more of a nitpick admittedly, but like the way they're kind of like formatting this, it's almost like they're trying to like say, no, these are the 3 that you should choose, but like if you want to choose something, then maybe you can choose any of the ones you want. At first level, you get Bardic Inspiration, the core feature of the Bard, and my criticisms start pretty much right away because I don't really like anything about Bardic Inspiration in this edition. Firstly, I'm not really a big fan of Bardic Inspiration being based off of proficiency bonus. I know that's a thing that WotC is pretty much doing now for their newer subclasses and races, but I really don't think it should be something for a main class feature like this, especially since, say, a Cleric Bard multiclass with 19 levels in Cleric and 1 level in Bard get the same amount of Bardic Inspirations as a level 20 pure Bard. Sure, they get the dice scaling as you progress in the levels of Bard, but it still feels like something that should be based off of Charisma, or better yet, a fixed amount that increases per level like what the Barbarian's Rage is. Secondly, the bonus action for Bardic Inspiration gets replaced for a reaction, which I'm of 1 or 2 minds of. Firstly, it's good that it helps people remember their Bardic Inspiration die, since it can only really be active in that moment. On the other hand, Bards were already pretty bonus action based, and it removes some of their usefulness in that regards. It also kind of removes the flavor of Bardic Inspiration, since you are supposed to feel inspired for a certain amount of time, instead of just in a moment where you need it the most, if that makes sense. Still, I think the thing I dislike the most about this is the reaction to heal an ally within range. Immediately, that makes spells like Healing Word pretty much obsolete if you have a powerful healing ability such as this that you can use pretty much as a reaction, like whenever. Like as soon as somebody goes down, you can just like, whoop, there you go. Just pop them right back up. It's a very powerful healing ability. It's just like so powerful for like first level. It irritates me in another way as well, but before I can really get into that, I should probably explain how the spellcasting works in this edition. So bards get spellcasting at level 1 as well, and the cool thing about spellcasting is that you can prepare any spell that you can get and choose which ones to prepare for a long rest, including cantrips, now known as 0 level spells. That's cool, but what's not so cool is that you can only prepare spells from the arcane spell list, and they can be divination, enchantment, illusion, and transmutation spells. I don't know, this is just a dumb way of handling spellcasting. It's confusing for new players and basically means they have to rely on online sources to even get a good idea on what kind of spells you can prepare. Sure, you get a list of prepared bard spells you can use in the document, but again, it's like the skill issue I mentioned before. It feels like the document is railroading newer players to making the same choices. And sure, not everybody is going to make the best decisions when they first start out. But even still, wouldn't it be much simpler to just give us class-specific spell lists? My opinion on the Arcane, Divine, and Primal spell list is a lot like my love life. It's complicated. It works for things like Magic Initiate and maybe even some subclasses that would utilize class spell lists for their own use. See the Divine Soul Sorcerer, for example. But this communal way of getting spell lists feels like it removes some of the identity of other classes. For example, Vicious Mockery was a Bard exclusive spell, and now it's just a part of the Arcane spell list, which can mean classes like Sorcerers and Wizards can now learn it, even though it feels like it'd be more special for the Bard to have a spell exclusive to them like this one. And sure, in 5th edition, you can choose certain feats or other character options to get Vicious Mockery, but it still feels like something that bards and maybe other more silver-tongued characters can get, not just anyone who can access one of these 3 spell lists. Alright, now with both of my complaints towards the spellcasting and the Bardic Inspiration in mind, let's talk about the second level ability, Songs of Restoration, which replaces 5e Song of Rest, which, well, not a great feature, definitely felt flavorful and useful in short rest situations. With this new ability, however, it just adds healing spells to prepared spell list when you reach certain levels, including spells like Lesser Restoration and Mass Healing Word. This is definitely my least favorite change in the One D&D Bard because it removes flavor for this basic feature that also typecasts you into being a healer. And I just cannot stand the fact that WotC seems to think that support automatically equals healing. It's just a pet peeve overall, and a bad change that bodes terribly for the flavor potential of the Bard for a very flimsy attempt at making the Bard seem more useful. Aside from that, Bards are actually pretty standard affair. They get expertise at 2nd and 9th level, which works pretty much the same as before. You can just choose 2 spells to get double proficiency in, and that's the same for Rangers and Rogues also get this feature as well, which I'll cover whenever I get to those classes. At 3rd level get their subclass, which actually gets features at 6th, 10th, and 14th level, which fixes the issue of the Bard subclass scaffolding being so sparse between 6th and 14th level, as they were in 5th edition. They also get feats at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th, which is pretty much the standard affair for the 5th edition classes. Also, ability score improvements have been moved to a feat, which I think is a good choice, but I'll get to that a little later. And they would also get the 20th level Epic Boon. At 5th level, you get Jack of All Trades, which is a lot later than the 2nd level for 5th edition, and similarly you get Font of Inspiration, at 7th level instead of 5th from 5th edition. I normally would have a problem with that, but I'm mostly alright with it now that level features are more spaced out than they were before, with no real dead levels aside from maybe 13th and 17th level. And even then, that's when they start learning 7th and 9th level spells respectively. I should also mention that while Jack of Trades is the same as before, Font of Inspiration still has the short rest restoration for our Bardic Inspiration, as well as a new feature that allows you to keep that Bardic Inspiration usage whenever the person who has Bardic Inspiration dice rolls a 1, which I think is a good change for this new reaction-based Bardic Inspiration. They get magical secrets now at 11th and 15th levels, which works differently now that it's based off of the 3 communal spell lists that I mentioned before, the Arcane, Divine, and Primal, in which you can choose one of those 3 spell lists and prepare 2 of any spells from that list as long as you have spell slots for the spells. Despite my misgivings for these communal spell lists, I actually don't mind the change. It's actually a bit of a buff since you can choose from any spell from one of these lists on any long rest, which is pretty insane, but fitting for higher levels. Superior Bardic Inspiration is moved down to level 18 and actually got a buff, and now you can regain 2 uses of Bardic Inspiration whenever you roll initiative instead of just 1. So yeah, overall, aside from my misgivings with how Bardic Inspiration works now, the spellcasting system, and the Songs of Restoration feature, I think the rest of the Bard template is fine. It still doesn't really give me the feeling of a Bard, but it seems to be widely focused on the 5th edition template, which had that problem before, so I'm just going to have to live with that. Each of the classes present also give us 1 subclass, which 48 subclasses proposed for the One D&D Player's Handbook when it releases. The one present for the Bard is the College of Lore, our standard Bard subclass, the know a little about a lot, jack of all trades that goes around telling tales and collecting information. They have some newer changes now with the addition of the 10th level subclass feature, with most of the other subclass features from 5th edition staying with One D&D. Keyword on most. They get 3 bonus skill proficiencies and cutting words, which works the same as before at 3rd level. Peerless skill also works the same as before for their 14th level feature. But at 6th level, they now get Cunning Inspiration, where someone who has Bardic Inspiration can now roll 2 dice and use the higher roll. And with their 10th level feature, they get an improvement on Cunning Words, which now lets them deal psychic damage equal to their Bardic Inspiration roll. For those familiar with 5th edition, you would notice that there's one feature missing, and that's additional magical secrets. And oh, that's just a big missed opportunity there. It goes against the flavor of the College of Lore as well, I think. So, like I said before, the additional magical secrets is, like, you can just get... It works pretty much the same as the actual magical secrets. You can just, like, choose one of those spell lists and, like, prepare 2 spells from that spell list at any given opportunity. I think that kind of, like, works with the flavor of the College of Lore, and that, again, they're kind of, like, learning a little bit about a lot. They're a jack of all trades. They should know more than your typical bard that can, like, translate into learning more spells. With this new feature, Cunning Inspiration, it's fine, but let's face it, any bard subclass could have this feature. I don't think additional magical secrets was a feature that was widely disliked or considered OP. It was strong, sure, but it wasn't really game-breaking. I think this is a really bad missed opportunity. I actually believe it should be added back because it just makes sense for the College of Lore, and without that, what even is this subclass anymore? It's just bland. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to this first part of my analysis on the Expert Classes UA covering the Bard. Make sure to tune in for the next parts covering the Ranger, the Rogue, and the feats, spells, and rule changes also covered in this document. Thank you all, stay cheesy.